Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First of all, the Honorable Committee of the Sixth Asian Education Symposium 2021 with the main theme, the construction of education in the digital era of post-COVID-19. I would like to say thank you for coming in my presentation. It's good to see you all and honored to meet you here. Okay, let me introduce myself and my partners in this research. My name is Wahyudi Buska, and my partners in this research are Mr. Muhammad Ridwan Saad, Dr. Budi Sanjaya, and Dr. Yogya Prihartini. We are from Postgraduate School of the Sultan Toha Saifuddin State Islamic University of Jambi, Indonesia. I would like to present my research under the title Muhadatsah Learning Strategy in Improving Arabic Language Skills. Introduction. The process of learning Arabic at Man Kerinci prepare for the assessment of basic language competencies, which includes language skills that are taught integrally, namely listening, speaking, reading, and writing. The four kinds of the skills that are applied. One of which is the speaking skill, Muhadatsah. Speaking Muhadatsah is the most important part in learning Arabic for the assessment of an idea. In Muhadatsah must follow the rules of good and correct pronunciation. The purpose of Muhadatsah learning is to train students to become accustomed and fluent in conversation, speaking in Arabic. In learning Muhadatsah requires a profile learning strategy and requires various kinds of media and learning that support the learning process. Background of the problem. The strategy used in learning Muhadatsah at Man Kerinci, Jambi is to use the conventional method, Muhadatsah. At the beginning of the learning, the teacher provides subject matter to be taught and written on the blackboard, such the teaching grammar, white, interpreting words, finished when the teacher writes. The teacher explains the lesson after the students understand the core lesson is solved. At the first, the teacher practices and Muhadatsah method in the front of the class, then students follow. The student who was taught by the two people to come forward to practice the Muhadatsah method. The students were asked to practice their respective days. Was finishing only the teacher took the value of the student learning outcomes. Also, there are still many students who do not understand the lesson, especially learning Muhadatsah, because there are several obstacles faced, such as the lack of textbook, language labor, because and other media needed in Muhadatsah. So the strategies used in learning Muhadatsah do not work properly, smoothly without being accompanied by other supporting media. Considering that Muhadatsah is an inseparable part of learning Arabic, one of the things that must be a concern for a teacher is how to provide efficient Muhadatsah learning strategies using available facilities so that students can receive a complete understanding of the material present. This research took place in Madrasah Aliyah Negeri Man Kerinci, used the scope of research on Muhadatsah learning strategies for class 11, and this research was in the form of broad research using qualitative approach. The data that the author used to study are primary data and secondary data. Primary data is the data that the authors get directly in the field and related to the problem. It exists in the research file and or can also be interpreted data collected directly from the source to be studied, namely those obtained from interviews with school participants, teachers, and students. The secondary data is supporting data that comes from source and documentation obtained from the Office of Man Kerinci. And the secondary data also comes from several books with data source to get theories from experts as references. Source of the data to obtain various information that follows Arabic teacher student of class 11 and various documents at the state Bahasa Aliyah Man Kerinci. Population is a complex set of units of independence for the crisis we want to know. The population is a study worse than of Man Kerinci Jambi. Based on the data from the registration and registration recapitulation report from each semester from 2021 to 2022 academic year, the number of students at Man Kerinci Jambi is 267 people. The sample is part of the person that provides information of data needed in the study. The research sample was taken using the random sampling method, namely selecting individuals from the group of the number of subjects. Not all of the words usage is research subjects, but the author says 30% of the numbers of subjects. So the research subjects amounts to 15 people. The research method chosen in this research is literature review, field study, interview, discussion, and documentation. And the data analysis technique used is qualitative with an around transmitted and presented with the description in the form of sentence after the data is collected. To analyze the data, the author connects the problem set with the reality encountered in the field with qualitative analysis and guidelines in inductive, deductive, and comparative thinking patterns. Results. Arabic learning system Man Kerinci, application of the Muhadatsah learning strategy at Man Kerinci, the result of implementation of Muhadatsah learning strategy for students at Man Kerinci. Arabic learning system at Man Kerinci, the obstacles faced in learning Muhadatsah, speaking Arabic at Man Kerinci, step taken to achieve Muhadatsah learning objectives at Man Kerinci. Arabic learning system at Man Kerinci, the objectives of learning Arabic provided by Man Kerinci are so that the student have Arabic skill, can read, write Arabic text, and can understand Arabic text, and try to arouse students' enthusiasm for learning, especially in Arabic subject. The purpose of learning Arabic and Man Kerinci is so the student can master Arabic. Because Arabic is a language of Islam, where the purpose of learning Muhadatsah at Man Kerinci Jambi is that students are expected to be able to communicate in Arabic, to be able to understand the source of Islamic teaching, namely the Quran and Al-Hadith. Arabic learning system at Man Kerinci first developed the ability to communicate in Arabic, both oral and written, which includes four language skills, namely listening, speaking, reading, and writing, or istima, kalam, qira'ah, and kitabah. Second, to raise awareness about the importance of Arabic as a world language to become the main tool of learning, especially in studying the resource of Islamic teachings. Third, develop an understanding of the interrelationship between language and culture and broaden cultural horizons. The student expected to have a cross-cultural insight and involve themselves in cultural diversity. Application of student Muhadatsah learning strategy at Man Kerinci. The Muhadatsah method is a way of presenting Arabic learning material talks conversation in which conversation can occur between teacher and student, between student and student, while adding and continuing to enrich the vocabulary of the words of that which is increasing. In learning Muhadatsah, it's always guided by the teacher. The Muhadatsah learning strategy uses the conventional method. The beginning of the learning, the teacher proposes matter to be taught and written on the blackboard, such as teaching grammar, quiet, interpreting words, finish writing to the teacher, then explain the lessons. After the students understand the core lesson itself. At the first, the teacher practices the Muhadatsah in front of the class, then the student followed. The students were cut by two people to come forward to practice the Muhadatsah method. The students were asked to practice at their respective desks. After finishing only, then the teacher took the value of the student learning account. Therefore, The strategy used by the Arabic language teacher in Muhadatsah use the conversing methods. Before the learning takes place, the teacher must prepare the subject matter material. The process of learning Arabic at Mandarin has been said to be quite good. In addition to the teaching, students are also active in facing in the learning process because Arabic lessons are part of the educational curriculum that must be followed by all students and is even liked by the majority of students. The result of the implementation of Muhadatsah learning strategy for students at Mandarin, the application of the Muhadatsah learning strategy in Mandarin applies a competency approach and learning approach in order for Arabic language learning activities to be carried out properly. The learning person developed emphasis the integration between the three educational environments, namely the family environment and the madrasa and the community. Muhadatsah learning at Mandarin is carried out according to the strategy applied by the teacher. The teacher is guiding, directing students so that students feel really directly involved in teaching and learning interaction. So between teacher and students both play an active role in the learning process in order to achieve educational goals. Judging from the learning outcome of the class 11 Mandarin and Arabic subjects, especially in learning Muhadatsah, that was quite good, even though there were still some students who had not mastered Muhadatsah. In this case, the teacher is required to improve student assessment by providing motivation and encouragement to the maximum extent possible for the assessment of educational and learning objectives, especially the objective of learning Arabic. The process of learning Arabic and Mandarin has been carried out in accordance with the existing curriculum based on the content standard and graduate competence standards, which explain that learning Arabic in Madrasah is a process of activities directing and encouraging, guiding, developing, and fostering Arabic language skills by prioritizing the ability to read and understand reading materials. The obstacles faced by Arabic language teachers in learning Muhadatsah at Mandarin. A. The process of learning Arabic at this school has followed the existing curriculum, but there are still many obstacles that we face in teaching Arabic lesson, especially the learning resource list like Arabic textbook. We know that textbooks are very important for learning, especially Arabic learning. In this school, each class only has one textbook, and even then, it is only for the teacher's hand. Well, for students, there are none. So the teacher must spend time taking notes in front of it, and little time is left to explain. Besides the active learning process at Mandarin, there are also various kinds of inhibiting factors in learning Muhadatsah, namely conflict status and infrastructure such as language textbook, language labor, focus group, and other media related to learning Muhadatsah. With the lack of media and infrastructure, the Muhadatsah learning strategy is not optimal without the media and supporting infrastructure that support the Muhadatsah learning process. The ability of Muhadatsah in where Muhadatsah did not run smoothly and did not get maximum results. Many students are interested in English because Arabic lacks teaching materials. C. The difficulty first in teaching Arabic in the terms of reading, Qira'ah, the background of students who have very little knowledge of Arabic. So some of them come from junior high school with minimal knowledge of Arabic. Regarding age for learning Arabic, there is no such thing of focus language level. In other words, facilities and infrastructure are not adequate. Likewise, with this book here, we only have one book for each class due to the lack of Arabic textbook. The time to explain the lesson was spent taking notes up front. D. The obstacles faced in the learning Muhadatsah in Mandarin are not being able to read Arabic text, which in Muhadatsah complete facilities and infrastructure and the background of the student who also influence so that learning strategies do not run smoothly without the support of the media or the learning. Steps taken to achieve Muhadatsah learning exercises at the Mandarin. First, student must strategically by increasing memorization. Second, an Arabic teacher, besides teaching, must also learn to be a professional and creative teacher in simulating students always communicate using Arabic. Third, the orientation of language learning is not only to master the rules of the language, but is more directed to mastering Arabic communication. Muhadatsah, the methods used must be able to simulate and communicate using Arabic. The end conclusion. The process of learning Arabic in Mandarin has been carried in accordance with the existing curriculum based on the content standard and graduate competence standard, which explained that learning Arabic at Madrasah Aliyah is the process of activities and encouraging, guiding, developing, and fostering Arabic language skill by prioritizing the ability to read and understand Arabic materials. The Muhadatsah learning strategy does not run smoothly due to the lack of media and Muhadatsah learning such as textbook, language level focus on related to Muhadatsah learning. Thus, the Muhadatsah learning strategy cannot be applied optimally without the infrastructure and supporting media in Muhadatsah learning process. Steps taken to achieve the learning objective of Muhadatsah at Mankrinci is follow. A. Efforts made by student. B. Effort made by the Arabic teacher. C. Effort made by the school. Thank you very much for your attention. See you in next presentation. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.